Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome back, because it is, these are our year in review shows. And so I'm assuming you probably have just been waiting on tenterhooks to have like, what movies are they going to talk about now? Well, we're here. Welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. I am Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are so happy to be back again. Great to see my good friend Ryan, albeit virtually. Hey, it's quite a world out there, but you know what, that world, when the world gives you lemons, you watch movies and squirt the lemons in your eye so that you can cry. Anywho, I have no idea what that was.
It makes you cry. That's no lie.
That's true. All right. So we are back. We are continuing our discussion of the year in movies for 2021. Most of these movies, pretty much all of these movies, were, had releases, like streaming or a digital release on some platform, as well as in a movie theater. Very few of these just said, nope, movie theater, just doing it.
Yeah. If we get to a couple, there are a couple, but if we get to some, we'll mention them. But yeah, it wasn't day and date, or they were released on demand so that you kind of had to pay movie prices for them. Some of them, some of these were festival. A lot of these were festival movies that had no festivals to premiere at. So they made these sort of little rounds until they came out. But this is basically all the movies I watched, last year, and there's some conspicuous ones missing from our next couple episodes, but we might bring those up too, just to acknowledge that they're out there, because there were, especially near the end of the year, there were a lot of, as Joel said, sort of stubbornly movie theater only releases, and we actually appreciate the existence of those, but not enough to go see them. Joel saw one. That'll come up.
I did. I ventured out. And essentially with a hazmat suit on, and I said, I'm gonna see it.
Joel saw one. I did not, but I saw 100 other ones that I saw in a different way. So
that's true.
So I win.
Real quick before we start, if dear listeners, if you remember our a few of our episodes that we've done where we've talked about home video and Ryan's home video roundup and it's video, it's what you want to watch. One of the things that one of my favorite things that we've ever talked about was Ryan talking about physically owning a DVD or a Blu-ray or a CD versus just having it streaming, or purchasing it but only having it on a digital platform. There was a great article in Rolling Stone this week speaking to that. Now it speaks specifically to compact discs and music, but I think it's applicable to a lot of types of consumer media. So I just want, and it bears out a lot of what Ryan has been saying for years. And so I just want to bring to your attention that article in Rolling Stone. It's in this month's Rolling Stone. And also, once again, to just say, hey, this is what you get with the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. You get cutting edge
Wow.
just, diatribes and discussions. So no, but it's really interesting, and it's, Ryan is not a singular being. There are others who do indeed share his thoughts about.
It's very complicated, but
yeah,
the gist of the argument is, and the Rolling Stone article is fantastic, but the gist of the argument is that, the article is really specifically like a pro CD article, which is weird because that's even people who buy lots of media don't buy CDs anymore. They buy albums, basically. It goes into the differences and stuff into it, but the CD were a great way for record companies and artists to make money. And Spotify, I'm singling them out because they're amongst the worst, and they're amongst the most used both, which, but it's really all streaming services, some version of this. They are really only, the only people they make money are the shareholders of Spotify. If you're listening to Elton John on Spotify, okay, Elton has all his money. Like, he grew up when records, the media were sold, and he's a gajillionaire. You don't have to feel bad for him. But anyone who's coming up now who isn't, and literally you can count, there's like 15 of them who isn't Beyonce, or who isn't Swift, or who isn't Adele, somebody who really does move a ton of digital content.
Yeah,
you're nobody, and there's no way to make a living. And when they took the bars and concerts away, I mean, and they're killing the music, essentially.
Yeah,
and that's the sad thing about it. So it's not to guilt people who conveniently stream music, and we don't guilt people who conveniently stream movies. As I said, 100% of these movies were streamed by me, and it's like, I get it, although the revenue streams in the Hollywood sense and a distribution sense are much, much better for movies than they are for music. If you're an artist and you can get 100,000 listens, I mean, it just doesn't pay you anything. It just doesn't pay you anything. It pays you a pile of nickels. And that's going to make music, like non-corporate sponsored music, just wither away and die on the vine. Not all of it. Some people will persist, but it's a bummer. It's a bummer that even if you're a big fan of somebody, if you just sort of searching for them on your phone and listening to them, like, they just get nothing from that there's no connection between you and the artist anymore. But Rolling Stone, maybe we'll post it. There's a bunch of other ones out there. There's some fun infographics about music streaming sites, but we sort of avoid the music. I pitched to Joel that we should do 120 Billy Joel songs in 120 minutes. He thought I was kidding, but I think that'd be a fun show.
Yeah.
We could do it. Just
as long as we also do 120 Billy Joel problematic rants in 120 minutes.
Problematic rants,
like, his, that's kind of what he's known for now, is he just goes on these weird tangents.
He's an old crabby guy, and he was that anyway. He had good sense not to do that back in the day, but he does some nice things. He said that what's her face was like the Beatles and stuff. He was sticking up for some modern artists out there and stuff. I like that. But but whatever. I don't mind. I mean,
it might still be fun. It might be a fun thing to do.
The nice thing about it is that you guys would know a lot of the songs as we went along, which it's not true for every artist. 120 songs is literally how many songs he has. That includes 4 covers. It's every song.
Yep.
And
it's a great box set. Yeah. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
and
we
Joel,
won't talk about.
Used to love him growing up, and I used to love him growing up, and we were both sort of. I mean, it's been since '93 that he put new music out, so we both sort of tempered on him. But I still think that'd be a fun roll through the past that a lot of people could relate to.
It would allow me to tell my story of when my wife and I saw him and Elton John at Madison Square Garden the night before he checked himself into rehab.
2 minutes per song. You've already told that story. And all you'll have time to do is refer back to it.
That's true. Okay.
But
that's
when
good.
people say, why don't you guys do music shows? We could say, hey, Billy Joel show, go check it out.
All right. Well,
and then
maybe
tell us if you want us to do more.
Yeah, I don't, we won't cover Amplifier Fire, his, the album with Attila. We won't,
we could have an Attila special edition version of the show come out later, though.
Yeah, that's true.
The expanded edition. 134 Billy Joel songs in 134 minutes or something. We'll see.
All right. Well, that of course is.
If you want to hear that show, this is your chance. If not, one of you write in. That probably won't happen, but I think it might be groovy. So
it would be kind of silly. All right, so let's get into 2021, more of our year in review, and let's start out with some quarantine comedies. Yeah, and woohoo!
Didn't watch many comedies. Don't really watch many comedies, but
yeah.
And these aren't even all strictly comedies. One of them's barely a comedy, but whatever.
Yeah. All right. First up is Lady of the Manor. We had, with let's see,
Justin Long and his brother made a movie during COVID when it first broke out with a small group of people. It's an extremely small movie.
Yep.
It only has a couple of locales and stuff, and it's cute. It's Melanie Linsky. Do you have the IMDb thing up? Because it's a hilarious summation of what the movie is.
This one sentence, it's fantastic. A flatulent, aimless ne'er-do-well becomes a tour guide in a historic estate and winds up befriending the manor's resident ghost.
Played by Judy Greer. Melanie Linsky and Judy Greer are really funny in it. I mean, it's a cheap, stupid movie with a bunch of stupid gags. It's not very good, and it has its sort of dark heart for the light kind of comedy that it wants to be. But it was entertaining. Like, I laughed a lot at it. I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but I laughed a lot at it. I laughed at a couple of the bloopers in the end credits, which I never do. So just not since Bug's Life anyway. So you should just kind of it is that. It's Judy Greer plays the Lady of the Manor, this uptight person from another era who's haunting this manor. And Melanie is just really, really funny. I mean, she's a really, really funny actor. And she just plays this Gen X loser, basically. She has this big argument with her boyfriend at the very beginning of the movie because she delivers drugs to people, and he calls her a drug dealer. And she goes, I'm not a drug dealer, I'm a drug deliverer. She's like, she has this drug like Uber business on the side, which is just enough for her to make enough money to sit around and eat cheese puffs and watch TV all day.
Right.
There's a running gag throughout that normally I would hate, where she just keeps trying to escape to some safe spot where she could fart. And every single time it's always inhabited by somebody just out of sight who gets to experience the whole thing. That's really, really dumb, but it was funny. It was genuinely funny. Ryan Philippe too is hilarious in it. He's, he has to play it straight, which is a hard thing to do, and he does a really, really good job. Justin, his usual self, he has a very agreeable screen presence. He's pretty dull in it, but again, he's got to kind of play straight man to Melanie's character, But the thing really comes alive when the two women are on screen together doing this investigation and stuff, and it subverts a lot of fun, like a lot of cliches about, well, we're going to solve the thing or whatever. And they just don't know the first clue of what they're doing. And we wouldn't either. And all those little bits and things sort of ring true and are fun. So Lady of the Manor, if you think you could like a film where farting is like the first thing mentioned in the synopsis,
indeed it is.
And then this is this is one that I can actually sort of endorse. It's
if you yourself are a flatulent, aimless ne'er-do-well, you might enjoy this.
The filmmaking's not good. It really is just one camera, point and shoot's dull. And a lot goes into making a movie. So forgive me, Long Brothers, if I'm being, oversimplifying the process, but it really did look like a cheap, crappy TV show. But the jokes kept rolling, and they were fairly clever. And Melanie Linsky's just a treasure on screen, and she's having a bit of a comeback now with Yellow Jackets and some other things, and that's great because she's not a conventional leading lady, but she's fantastic.
No, but she is really really talented, really funny. All right, next up is the movie Locked Down. Next up is Locked Down. That's how I should have done it. Damn it.
Next Lockdown, Lockdown is the ultimate COVID comedy of its day. This movie was written by somebody who knows what they're doing. Again, no offense, Longs. I did it. Endorse your movie. I don't know what else you want from me. But you guys are just goofing about. Stephen Knight is he's written some bonkers scripts that are in some bad films, but he's written some of the best screenplays in the modern era. He's one of the best screenwriters working, and he's tried to write this story about this couple that was on the verge of divorce, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and who's the woman in it?
Anne Hathaway.
And they just find themselves just literally about to sign the papers when they are just sort of trapped and have to stay and live with each other because the early days of COVID prevent them from going out. And there's a lot of, because the writing is good, there's a lot of metaphor in it. There's a bunch of monologues. There's a bunch of Zoom meetings with her and her coworkers and stuff. She has to fire her whole team basically over Zoom, which is heartbreaking and awful. But it's darkly funny as well. I mean, the film is a comedy, but what it is more than that is it's a heist movie. They get it into their head because of two things that are happening in their lives to steal this precious thing. I won't really go into what it is or how they're going to do it, but the last act, the heist, opens the thing up quite a bit and makes it feel like, wow, this is a real movie. But this movie annoyed people. This was a fun movie for people to just dismiss. It has very, very low viewer ratings. So, you may find it cloying and annoying, which it is to some degree, but I encourage people to look harder. I think each scene and each sort of segment is a rather well thought out evaluation about not just sort of the death of a modern relationship, which is not necessarily a fun thing to watch, but about what we were going through culturally and about the sort of unfeelingness of detachment. And you get that in two ways. I mean, it's like I say, it's very clever. This is a smart writer. Yep. And it worked pretty well, even though they are annoying. These characters are kind of awful, and it can be a frustrating movie. I thought for how hard it was panned, it was much, much smarter than people were giving it credit for, or not willing, I think, to engage with it on that level. I think they wanted a romantic, heist film, which it kind of is, but it really stubbornly refuses to be just that. So. Yeah,
I'm trying to see where. Now,
HBO
okay, here's
Max
the
is where you
but like Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't actually in this, was it? Somebody has put Sonic the Hedgehog as a cast member in this movie.
I don't want to say for sure that he wasn't, and not in a way that I really noticed, but there's a video game aspect to Lockdown.
Okay, so maybe that's why someone thought to credit it. Okay, I was like, maybe. What?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a joke, but I'm trying to find the release date. Oh yeah, because it came out right away. This was one of the first sort of COVID-y films that the third HBO released, whatever. Yeah. Right after Little Things, which we'll talk about, and Judas and the Black Messiah, which we've already talked about.
Yeah, but I just
mean,
but
it came out early in the year.
No, but I meant the first movie to like take place in our COVID world.
Yeah,
and I wonder if that's one of the reasons why people didn't see it, is because they didn't want to, they were really looking for escape or looking to be in a different time or whatever. Who knows why it went into it. I just remember
it's a really smart movie, and it knows it's smarter than you, and that can be annoying.
That can be true.
Not everybody likes that. I dug it for that reason primarily, because the rest of it didn't do a whole lot for me. But, Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel, and there's a whole bunch of other good performers in this film. There's a fantastic scene where Ben Kingsley is they're handing out a name to Chiwetel, and the name that they give him is Edgar Allan Poe. And he's like, "You can't call me Edgar Allan Poe. That's a famous person." And Kingsley's on the other side of the Zoom call. He's like, I don't think so. And then they have this big argument, and he's like, who gave you that? So you didn't just come up with that on your own. Who told you that? And he's like, Sam or whatever. And he's like, well, that's it. He's just making fun of me or whatever. I'm not going to walk around and say I'm Edgar Allan Poe to people. You're making this impossible. It's just hilarious. And Kingsley's he's really funny. He's barely in it, but he's really, really funny in it. And that conversation is really just absurd and funny. And the movie's full of stuff like that. That's really smart humor, but it's not. It isn't like farting in the dean's office and then having them appear behind their desk. Like that makes me laugh in a totally different kind of way. You gotta engage with lockdown a little bit, and even then, it's only so good. It's not like it's some great masterpiece of a film,
right?
But it's much better than its reputation, I thought. I was surprised how good it was. And then when I saw the credits, I said, oh, God, Stephen Knight wrote this. Yeah. Stephen Knight wrote, the list is as long as my arm, but he wrote some of my favorite films, Dirty Pretty Things, Eastern Promises. Eastern Promises is one of my favorite scripts of all time, truly. It's almost perfect.
Yeah.
And Joel could name a couple more that are really awesome.
Peaky Blinders is one of the main guys behind Peaky Blinders. He wrote that fantastic I thought it was really fantastic, really dark, creepy Christmas Carol that was on FX. I dug that. Serenity, Girl in the Spider's Web.
You could go back go back further.
I'm Eastern Promises,
Serenity,
Amazing Grace, Dirty Pretty Things.
Amazing Grace is great. We talked about that on the Michael Apted show.
Yep. Redemption, Close Circuit, Lock, 100-Foot Journey, Ponshaker, Seventh Son.
It's good stuff.
Yep.
Locke is good. Locke is just Tom Hardy in his car talking on his phone for an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah, it's an experiment. It's kind of like this. It's not like, oh, it's some great movie, but it's like, wow, they pulled this off. It is actually a movie, and all you ever are is having phone conversations with somebody driving across England. It's amazing that it works at all. So he's a clever writer.
All right, next up is The Show. This one is from the mind of Alan Moore.
Alan Moore writing a movie on purpose instead of just having one of his comic books ruined in the movies. It's weird, man. It's a weird film. It's all about dreams, and there's this disconnect in reality. Tom Burke, who's a fantastic actor, he played Orson Welles in Mank. I guess that's his most high profile thing that he's done recently.
Oh, sure. But yeah.
He's about to break through in a major way into, you're going to know who he is, even if you don't. He was in the BBC's Three Musketeers show. He's on the fantastic mystery show with Holliday Granger, whose name I'm forgetting, but I adore it. It's from the weird little mystery short stories that J.K. Rowling wrote. I just can't remember what it's called, but it's fantastic. So you should check that out. That's on demand. That whole show is on demand on HBO. What's it called?
I'm looking here. Musketeers, War and Peace.
It's great in War and Peace too.
The Hour.
But this is recent. I mean, this would have
this
would have just happened. This is since all that stuff.
Well, CB Strike,
CB Strike, that's the name of the character who solves mysteries. You can see why I forgot the name.
Yeah,
CB Strike. That's his name. He's an ex-military guy who starts a failing private detective agency, and one day he's sent a temp from the secretariat pool who really takes to solving mysteries, and the two of them become this team. And those two actors are great, and the mysteries are genuinely fun. Like if you like Sherlock or you like stuff like that, watch it. It's really, really good. Thank you for finding the name. Sorry, folks, that I couldn't remember it, but it's a name that's a name. No wonder I couldn't remember.
Right.
Anyway, back to the show. It's weird. Alan Moore plays himself in it, and he gives himself, not really himself, but he plays a version of himself. He gives himself a song to sing, and he gives himself this, it's hard to explain, but the moon makeup, where the pompadour comes way out and the beard comes way out so that your whole profile is a crescent moon.
Yep.
We've seen that makeup in different sort of fantasy settings before, and he's amazing in it. But it's really just Burke going from place to place, experiencing some weird absurdity after another. And by the time it's over, he solves the problem of the story, but he doesn't really solve the mystery of the story. And that's sort of a man's search for a stolen artifact leads him to the haunted town filled with voodoo gangsters, masked adventurers, Depression-era private eyes, and violent chiaroscuro women. It's a weird, low-budget English film, but it's got a lot of fun stuff in it. And Alan Moore is a very, very clever guy. So this is another one. This whole list of these probably aren't super on your radar. Maybe Lockdown because of the star power behind it, perhaps. But then when you look up and you see the 2.5 out of 5 stars, you probably skip that one, which I can understand. This one's weird. You got to really like weird movies. It's weird David Lynchian kind of film. Truly, it's an odyssey into weird dark places without the masterful filmmaking techniques to back it up. And that's really what it's missing. It's very creative, and the people who worked on it, the makeup and the settings are fantastic, but it's all kind of shot a little deliberately and boring. And that brings it down a few pegs in my estimation, and makes it more of a curiosity rather than some sort of hidden gem. But it's still quite good. The storytelling's smart. Alan Moore is an interesting storyteller, and it's got tons of references to other movies, mostly horror movies, but some other things in it that are very, very interesting. It's got great Christopher Fairbanks, who I always love. Anytime Chris shows up in something, God, I love him so much. One of the best. And now he's looks ancient. Every time I see him on screen, he looks older and older and older. But Chris Fairbanks been in a million things. He's kind of famous. He plays the weird doctor that brings Mila Jovovich back to life, and
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element, yeah. But the first time I noticed him, and I've seen him in things before this now. The first time I noticed him is he's one of the armed robbers at the beginning of Batman '89. He's the one with the credit card, and he's like, the Bat. There's no such thing as the Bat. He's the guy who says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm Batman." That whole scene is Chris Fairbank totally carrying that scene, and just nursing every line he has in that little tiny Batman scene is just perfection. And I adore him. Every time I hear him on like a commentary or something, to hear him talk about acting, and to hear him talk about like how ensemble acting is everything and everything. Because he's a theater actor primarily, even though his list of credits is a million miles long. Gets to be the villain in this, and it's fun. So it's got a lot going for it. It has a comic booky feel to it, but it really is trying to be sold as some sort of low budget superhero movie, and that really isn't what it is. So beware of that. There's some elements of that, but just beware of that from the maker of V for Vendetta and Watchmen, or and you just got to be like, it's none of those things. It's a very low budget odyssey through the seedier sides of Northampton. Joel, you'll appreciate that.
Oh, very good. There you go. And I got to, learn what chiaroscuro means. So.
Oh, tell us, please, because I don't know. And I watched the movie.
Let's see. Chiaroscuro, treatment of light and shade in drawing and painting.
Cool.
Yep. An effect of contrasted light and shadow created by light falling unevenly or from a particular direction on something.
It's the design of the film is really, really wonderful. That what they clearly didn't have was the time to do complex camera setups and lighting that was worthy of a mood piece. And they don't quite get that part right, but I think a lot of that is just, you just only had so much time and money to do a film like this. I would be interested in seeing what the filmmakers, the cinematographers and such do on their next piece if it's a more elevated thing. Because Alan Moore is enough to get the movie made, but with the script like this, no one was going to throw millions and millions of dollars at you. So it was a passion project, and you feel that in it. I like that.
All right, next up is Blithe Spirit, based on Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit. This is I don't has 3 writers who aren't Noel Coward, so I'm not entirely sure what that means.
It means it sucks. Maybe that's not where the suck happened with the 3 writers adapting what's a pretty well-worn story. I'm not even a huge Noel Coward fan to begin with, so what got me with this was the idea that I was going to see some handsomely made period film that might have an interesting take on this sort of idea of this guy jumbling these relationships. And there's a lot going on in it, because a lot of, it's a guy who's sort of obsessed with his ex-wife who is gone now, who's dead, and he's married to somebody new, and he's a creative person, he's a writer himself. He's basically Noel Coward. That's all Noel Coward films basically have Noel Coward as the star, which is part of why they're kind of awful, because he's not the greatest. It's in his work. He gets how sort of self-involved and selfish and kind of whatever he is. It's all an examination of that. Dan Stevens in the title, the main role is acceptable. Like, he really is doing a nice job.
He's a perfect, casting wise, he's kind of perfect for this role.
And the other 2 women are really good actors too. Leslie Mann, I want to say.
Yep, Leslie Mann and Isla Fisher.
So okay, but it got a nice poster, and it looked like it would be fun, and
it's got Dame Judi. It's got Dame Judi Dench as well. If you're not familiar with Blithe Spirit in the classic, it's a spiritualist medium who's just a kooky, wacky character. That's Dame Judi Dench. Holds a seance for a writer, Dan Stevens, suffering from writer's block, but accidentally summons the spirit of his deceased first wife, who leads to an increasingly complex love triangle with his current wife of 5 years.
And we've seen it, and it's hardly a love triangle because none of them really love each other at all. That's the part that sucks. It's hard to get into all these sniping and people. The idea is funny. He wants to go to this medium thing because he wants to be inspired to write another hit mystery sort of about that. And that was a big, big deal at the end of World War I. We've talked about that on the show before. Mediums and people coming to your house, and well over half of a generation of sons were killed in World War I and didn't come home, and people were just desperate to connect with the spirit world, and there were just plenty of con artists willing to exploit that. And this film, it's really a shame, this film super oversimplifies the role of the medium, which they got Judi Dench to play it. She's more than capable of doing more.
Oh, really?
And I don't want to ruin it because I guess it's a spoiler for the play and the story more than it is the movie, because in the movie, nothing ever comes from it. Wow, in fact, the movie sets up that that this is kind of happening all along. And then when you get to the end, it's not the case, which I think is really stupid. Yeah. But mostly they're just ugly people arguing over ugly things, and you're supposed to enjoy watching them be punished. And that's not fun. That alone is not enough. That you need to bring some humanity to it. I really do think Dan in particular, they're all well cast, but I think Dan in particular really does trip over himself trying to do that. It's not there in the project. The project has no heart. And that's obvious by the time it's over. And it bummed me out because it's gorgeous. It was actually probably reasonably expensive. It was, the settings, the costumes, the cars, everything's really, really cool.
Yeah, it looks sumptuous. It's really, it's
so it's just a completely empty enterprise, and it bums me out. There's a fun, like his ex-wife, any movie, if you've ever seen a movie about like an imaginary friend that you can't get rid of. That's what this is. He's arguing with her in front of people. People think he's talking to them and they get all upset. It's all this misunderstanding, farcical nonsense that has to do with this ghost bugging him. But if you want to see a ghost story, I can't believe I'm saying it, but I would see Lady of the Manor. That movie has some really awful stuff in it, but that movie somewhere in there has heart, and these people want to be connected to each other. They're not just there to torture each other all no exit, you know what I mean? There's more to it, and that makes for something that I can at least accept. Blithe Spirit is a mercenary exercise in going through the motions of what the story is without finding by actively sidestepping the humanity of the thing whenever possible, and that's too bad. Sure. That said, it's a spirit world, so if somebody gets murdered by accident or whatever, they pop up as a spirit. They don't really go away, so there's nothing in it that where you feel really bad, but I just didn't like it.
Well, speaking of great literary masterpieces, we are going to enter our next category of our review of 2021 films, and that is Enter the Monsterverse. And this first one is a classic tale of literature and popular culture, and it's something that I think everyone was waiting for. Was kind of desperate to fill their coffers with, and that of course is Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah. On the whole, I think I like Godzilla versus Kong a little bit better than Godzilla King of the Monsters, or whatever the previous one was.
Weirdly, I would agree with that.
Because I think it's a further evolution down the track into being fairly lighthearted monster mashup, if that makes any sense. And it seems to be where the studio really wanted to take this. Two plucky kids, going on an adventure into some conspiracy that's nonsensical and stupid. The film has although the kids are winning and fun, which helps. If you got to spend the whole movie with them, that helps a lot. Played by Joel's going to tell us here,
Millie Bobby Brown, of course, of Stranger Things,
carried over from the last film, which is nice.
And which one is this kid? Is it Julian Dennison? I can't remember, because Julian Dennison.
And he's adorable as well.
He's from best known for Deadpool 2. And
keep signing up for those sequels, kid. You're gonna make it in this business.
There it is.
Yeah. So I don't know. It has a whole. It has a night. Kyle Chandler shows up in the bookends of the movie again. That I like that it does its best, because it really is another movie. King of Monsters did its best to wipe off the Godzilla off the map as much as it could and be something different. And this movie does the same thing. It tries to move on in a totally different way from that previous film. They're just trying to find their way at this point, because that ultimately brings you the problem. Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, which I really thought was awesome, but wasn't really beloved by mass audiences, had a sort of artistic vision for what it wanted to be and how it wanted to show these things amongst us, and how it just, how it used scale to tell the story. And I don't want to go relitigate that movie of how awesome it is when people didn't like it. Jury's out on it, but whatever. You can see that there is an assured artistic hand at the helm of it. King of Monsters, on the other hand, is just, well, what crap can we dream up and just keep throwing it at the screen? And it's accomplished enough in that the effects and stuff are really amazing, and there is an effort to tell a human story about this family in there, but that sense of scale is gone. That family in King of Monsters is it. Mm-hmm. None of us else matter. All of wherever the big fight is, Chile or Brazil, I can't remember where, but the whole people of that city, they don't matter. Nothing matters except this little Hollywood disaster movie unit, and they have all this crazy, stupid drama packed in, and the whole philosophical fight over nurturing the monsters or fighting them or destroy. It's like, it's all stupid. And that movie is ultimately a big empty thing, but it's big. It gets that part right. This movie's totally different. This is like they find this alternate universe or whatever inside the core of the earth. Like, this is an idea where this idea is enough for a movie, and what they use it for is just kind of one action sequence, basically. And it's shameful. It's shameful that you're that you're changing, I mean, the way we think of our world into something else, and all you can really manage to do with that is a chase scene. It's just, the chase scene's pretty good. I mean, it's an expensive, lavish Hollywood blockbuster, but I mean, are you kidding? That's it. It's obvious which characters are going to be thrown to the wolves because they're dicks. Mm-hmm. And it's obvious that your heroes, if they show any sort of ingenuity or kindness to each other, are absolutely not in danger. So then all you got to do is kick back. I can't remember where the end takes place, Singapore or Hong Kong or something, some big giant Asian metropolis.
Yeah.
And again, the two monsters just duke it out, who are both ostensibly our heroes, and just obliterate the city. It has more giant, colorful skyscrapers falling in it than even Man of Steel had. And to me, that's like, and some sort of dialogue about, well, the city's mostly evacuated. Oh, good. So it's just the buildings that we had. It's just, it's like you don't even have the power of your convictions that these things cause real damage. The evacuation scene in the original Godzilla, where they're getting on buses and families are being separated, and you get this sense that there's humans involved in this thing. That movie does that really, really well. That scene where they're all skydiving down into San Francisco to attack the thing, and they're so tiny. They're these tiny, tiny little things. Like, I love stuff like that, and there's nothing like that in these sequels. And this film, I thought was better because I thought tonally this film's just a lark, and it's fun, and the kids are cute, and you can kind of have fun with it if you can get over how dull the Rock'em Sock'em finale is. I mean, if there are people online they're finally a movie where the monster. And this is like it. Yeah. I guess I'm wrong, but because that's finally giving the quote fans what they want, but the fans of this sort of thing aren't enough to make a big giant hit movie. And I don't know where the MonsterVerse goes from here. I skipped Kong Skull Island altogether, but again, that was a movie that had a consistent approach to the material that I thought, okay, at least I'm not loving every choice they're making here, but I get it. Yeah. These last two are just get some comic book kid to write and direct this crap, just throw it on up there. And as long as you put enough, because the big complaint about Godzilla was there's not enough Godzilla in it. I don't know how you can watch that movie and think that there's more than enough. These films are all like every chance you get, man, get them monsters in there, get them doing crazy crap. And by the time it's over, you feel exhausted. You don't feel exhilarated. It's just tiring. You're sick of everybody. You're glad it's over. And this movie wasn't bad, but it doesn't fix the mold of what Warner's trying to do with the Monsterverse, or Legendary is trying to do.
Right.
It's just another step further down the line to being completely disposable and stupid.
I enjoyed Kong Skull Island. I'm just going to throw that out.
Did you?
there.
Yeah, I did too, to a certain. Yeah, that movie too was like, well, let's get the very best sequence in the movie, like right at the front, so everything's kind of downhill after that. Mm-hmm. But that movie again had the storytelling there had a drive to it. The thing had a point to it. The interactions between the characters had reason. And frankly, from a monster movie standpoint, Joel, you didn't know who was going to get killed by a monster in that movie, and that gave it a little bit of an edge, which was nice and welcome. Correct.
And also, here's something, and you've talked about this before, and we've talked about it, but I remember it specifically coming from you. When there is a battle sequence, or especially between two super beings, in this case Kong and whatever, the blows have to hurt. The battle has to take its toll. Right. And that was one of the again, Kong Skull Island, not a great film, but every time Kong is in a battle, it takes a toll on him. Right. And that to me was very interesting. Was just kind of cool.
They show that in this film in Kong versus Godzilla, but they don't demonstrate it physically. That there's not a commitment to showing that. It's more you show him lying there and hurt, and but it's hard to buy into any of that. Oh, did Godzilla kill Kong, or is he going to appear and save the day when we least expect it? I mean, it's cliche after cliche. Yeah, it's really annoying. And I love Ishiro Honda's original Godzilla film, but I admit there's people out there who love, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla and Godzilla versus Space Godzilla and Godzilla Tokyo SOS. And I mean, there's the amount of Godzilla movies there's a lot of them, 30, 40 of them. And I'm not into those. And these last two really did pay a lot of tribute, particularly King of Monsters, with how it brought these CG characters to life on screen in a way that was consistent with the original films. I know people appreciate that too, but I appreciate that too, I guess, but that's not enough for me. The cheap Hollywood disaster story on the ground has to be better. Yeah. Or why are we doing this? And it isn't in either of them. Kong Skull Island, a little bit better. The original Godzilla 2004 or whatever, quite a bit better. Or 2011, I can't remember which. Either way, those have gotten worse as they go. Each one worse than the one before, except, like I say, tonally, I sort of like this one better. I think they were trying to have fun with this movie, and I think at certain points that works. Whereas King of Monsters, I don't think that movie was fun at all. Like, it was just like, it was this big, loud, plotting thing with Mothra in it.
Right. All right. Well, speaking of big plotting things, let's move on to Mila Jovovich starring in Monster Hunter.
Paul Anderson casting his wife in another big dumb movie. Game. But you know what's great about Monster Hunter is that this movie understands that's what it is. It's this silly, stupid, late night monster movie. The monsters are on the same scale of CGI wonderment as any of these other MonsterVerse movies we've talked about. There's a little less of the monster in it, but that's actually that because of the budget differences. But that actually is great because it makes you have to do something else with your story at some point. So a bunch of desert warriors from, I don't know where, Iraq, Afghanistan, something like that. They drive their Humvee caravan through a time portal through a space-time portal, through a black hole. I don't know. Do they show up in ancient Earth, future post-apocalyptic Earth, a different planet altogether? I can't say. The movie might have even solved those mysteries, but I didn't care, and so I wasn't paying attention apparently. But either way, it's as simple as that. It's just things get all blurry, and then their cars crash, and suddenly they're in a desert with monsters everywhere. And it's fun, man. That movie was really, really fun. I don't know.
Oh,
it's
okay,
fun.
Well, good.
It's a big, dumb, stupid monster movie, and it really knows that it is, and it really gets it. I'm certainly no Mila Jovovich fan. I mean, since the couple of Luc Besson movies where she was really quite interesting, the Joan of Arc film and the aforementioned Fifth Element, you know, she was like, and obviously the Linkletter movie, Dazed and Confused. Like her appearance on the scene felt like an evolution of a movie star. And at some point, she stopped being married or dating this creative French guy and got into with the King of Schlock, Paul Anderson of Mortal Kombat and Resident Evil fame, and she's sucked in everything she's been in ever since. It's pretty much as simple as that. She's just not a draw to something, but she's great. She plays a soldier in this. She plays a silly, super thin, hot chick version of a soldier that you would expect, but it works. It's a put on. We're all in on the joke. It's fun. That's a fun movie. That I was surprised by how fun it was. And we've praised Paul in the past. I don't like the Resident Evil series like at all. There a couple. I mean, there's 7 of them now or whatever. There's a couple of them that have their moments here and there, but as a whole, they're widely not good. But we in our disaster movie, we praised Pompeii, which I think is a fantastic late night period disaster film. Really, really fun, while still not just dicking around with its own content. Like it goes for it in the best way it can. This is the same. It takes all this ridiculousness on its own terms, and because of that, it works pretty well. And I won't really ruin the story surprises, but the setup for this is everything. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, check it out. It's fun, and it's really, really well choreographed monster action. You know, when you get it, it really is pretty awesome. These giant things, they don't seem to be impossible. I don't see how these things could live in the desert. What do they eat? I mean, what's the the food chain? I mean, you don't see another living creature in the thing. So, but they don't get into that. So, whatever.
They eat whatever comes through the portal.
Boy, do they. They really do that. That's true.
All right. So next up is maybe at least at the time it came out, Amazon's biggest like foray into original. I mean, they went all in on promoting this film. And that movie is
they paid $200 million for it. This film's a $200 million Skydance Paramount massive production that somebody at Paramount woke up one day and was like, nobody's going to go see this. We got to get rid of this thing like right now. And so why not turn to a streaming company that has money to burn and will appreciate having something of this scale to say, hey, you can only get it on Amazon, right? And that's the story behind the story of how this came to Amazon, which is, and you bet they pimped it. They paid through the teeth for it.
And we are talking about The Tomorrow War, directed by Chris McKay, starring Chris Pratt, Yvonne Strahovski, J.K. Simmons, others, Sam Richardson, Betty Gilpin.
Yeah, people. And the rest. On Tomorrow War. Tomorrow War is just kind of there's a portal in Tomorrow War too. It's really fun. There's just people in modern day sitting there watching the World Cup. Joel, you'll appreciate that. And then one day on the field, this time portal opens, and Earthlings from our future generations appear. And give us dire warnings of this future where the Earth is in all-out war for survival with a bunch of alien creatures from another planet, and we need help from the past, or we're not going to win. Pretty compelling. Huh?
There you go.
They should have done it at the Super Bowl, not the World Cup, in my opinion. But I guess they were going for more international flavor with their message, even though they were all Americans and spoke English. That aside, it's that kind of movie. Don't pick it apart. I mean, unless that's your bliss, just picking every damn thing apart, then this is the movie for you. So see, you could kind of have it both ways, but you want to be on one side of the spectrum. Really enjoy picking things apart, or really just sit back and don't pick everything apart. Because actually this movie, I think it's due to a lot of editing as opposed to clever storytelling, but because I think they edited a lot of Johnny the Explainer stuff out of it to get it down to a nice, lean, mean, a little over 2 hours. But there's a lot of stuff where, if you think about it, it's actually, there's a lot of plot going on that isn't said between these characters, because our characters, frankly, aren't privy to what the master plan is. You sort of have to figure that out by the time it's over. And if you give that some thought, it's fun to think about. Chris Pratt's adorable in it, family man. I mean, he's what you expect. He's awesome when the action kicks up. And he's very funny and charming when it isn't. And he's got a cute, plucky daughter that he has the perfect father-daughter relationship with. And he's got this perfect, beautiful wife. And, you know, he's this action star in this stupid action movie. And that's fun. And I like Tomorrow War, actually. There's a lot to like about it. There's a lot to hate about it. It's not very good. It's a big, loud, dumb action movie with aliens. And there's just this whole middle act, which is just tons of automatic weaponry, just shooting aliens and running from aliens and blowing aliens' heads up and blowing the oil tank up that's next to the bunch of aliens. But there's some sacrifice in the movie too. You get to know a few of the characters that sort of go down fighting and stuff, and there's a sort of nefarious conspiracy going on that's fun to sort through. And Yvonne Strahovski is really, really good actor. She's not really an A-list movie actor, so it's fun to see her in this. People know her from the old TV series Chuck. That was the first time I saw her, the spy show. And she's in, obviously very memorably, in the what's the Hulu show?
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale, yeah. So she's fantastic in that. She's really, really great in this, and her and Pratt have a neat chemistry that it pays off really nicely. So I don't know. I'm having a hard time rating it for you all as a whole. I kind of just gravitate to the moments I really liked. Who's the actor from the werewolf movie? You just mentioned his name. He's really fun.
Sam Richardson. Yeah,
Sam's really great. He's really great. He was really great in a much tougher, smaller, but much tougher role in young woman, something young woman with Carey Mulligan.
Oh, Promising Young Woman.
Yeah, he's great in that too. So Sam Richardson, thumbs up. I've seen you in the last couple things I've seen you in. You're fantastic. He's always been good, like on the sitcoms and stuff. Like, I mean, he's a really funny, really good actor. But this was fun because both these roles were something slightly different, and I like to see that, of course.
Yeah.
And it pays off although it doesn't, compared to something like, which cost every penny the same as, compared to something like Kong versus Godzilla, it doesn't really feel like it pays off. It feels like, where did the money go? You expect some giant, huge ending. What you get is sort of a shootout. But this is clever. I liked it. I recommend people watch it if they haven't, unless you just had it with big dumb blockbusters. This is one of the biggest and one of the dumbest. So
yeah, well, there you go.
I don't know. Did you see this one?
I have not seen it yet. No. It's just one that was like, oh yeah.
Somebody who's a little less cynical than me, I'd like to hear their opinion, because it really is fun. So
yeah,
someday,
I mean, I'll give it a watch. I from all the way back to the Chuck days. I mean, Yvonne Strahovski is a very special person in my life, and so
she's got a tricky role in it. And she's great in it. I really liked her. That was this section of the movie that I really, really liked the most. There's lots of neat things. There's a moment where they're like, why are these soldiers sent from the future all kids? I mean, that's weird, isn't it? They're not kids, but they're like 21. They're all the same, just sort of young age. And one of the characters figures out, because these are all people who haven't been born yet now.
Yeah.
And that nothing comes of that, but those little revelations, like, they do add up to something that's interesting, that if you keep paying attention to those as they go through the movie, and then ask yourself at the end, because they don't come out and tell you, ask yourself at the end what that was all about, what the plan really was. And it's interesting. It's fun. So there was some thought put into this. Like I said, I read online that it wasn't that they were trying to be tricky. They literally just cut that stuff out of the movie because they thought it was dull. So it isn't one of those, it's letting you figure it out for yourself. It's that by accident. It's like it decided you wouldn't really care, so it just skipped to the action. But what it left behind was this interest. It left behind these story elements that when you really do think of them, there's been thought that's put into them, and that's kind of neat. And yeah, Yvonne's great in it. If you like her, you should check it out. She's only in the middle of it, but you should check it out.
Well, there you go. All right, next category in our 2021 roundup is roll over Hitchcock, and you put in parentheses, in your grave.
Well,
so
nobody quite. First of all, we're not even trying to rip off Hitchcock anymore, right? I mean, that's
right.
So in a way, even a bad Hitchcock ripoff is fun to have in our present, because they're not the classic stylized suspense film is just not a thing that's in our vernacular these days. There used to be a ton of these, and there were all the way through really the early aughts, and then people just kind of didn't go to them anymore.
Right.
I think a lot of that isn't that people don't like a good thriller. I think people are really, really harder than anything on a bad mystery suspense film. If you make a bad one, people, the critics, everybody just come down on you like a hammer in a way that they don't for something like Tomorrow War. A film like that is sort of accepted as what it is. And you just, if you're a critic, you breathe a sigh before you watch it, and you just sit through it and evaluate it for what it is. A suspense film coming on the shoulders of the Titans, where all the best filmmakers for a whole generation, that's all they did was make these suspense movies.
Right.
When they're dumb, or when their twists don't work, or when, you know what I mean, or when their movie star starts acting all psycho and weird at the end and makes a fool out of themselves, so they get the hammer, Joel. They really do. And these are no different. We're going to give the hammer to a couple of them, but there's a couple of good ones here too. So go ahead.
Yep. First one is The Woman in the Window with Amy Adams.
The most Hitchcockian of the Hitchcock ripoffs is The Woman in the Window. This was directed by Wright. What's his name?
Yeah, Joe Wright.
Joe Wright.
Yep.
Who made some really good movies. He made we've talked about them before. He made the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, which is a fantastic film. He made the what's the one that came after the World War II one that we talked about?
That's
the Uninterrupted Shots movie.
Yes. Oh my
Atonement.
God. Atonement. Yep.
Atonement's tough. Atonement was a really impossible novel to make into a movie properly, so it really falls down there. But as in terms of filmmaking, it is extremely compelling, and I like it very much in that way.
He's doing or he did Cyrano, the Peter Dinklage Cyrano, that I'm very excited
which
for.
Is coming out any day now, or has already come out in one way or another. So that's interesting. I learned by reading about Cyrano, actually, I learned a little bit about this movie, where he just says, he said, he wanted this to be the Hitchcockian setup and the style of it definitely is deliberate, but he wanted this to go to a much more brutal survivalist place. The studio balked at that. They approved it, and then they wanted him to change it while he was making it. And he said, so what you get, unfortunately, what almost always happens when you do a decision like that, what you get is neither. You don't really get the perfect Hitchcockian bloodless thriller, and you don't really get the real brutal, mano-y-mano thing that he wanted. And he said that in the end, he doesn't think the movie's lousy, but in the end he says that sort of pleases nobody, and that is sort of the experience of watching The Woman in the Window. The setup is familiar and you kind of like it. Amy Adams is fantastic, so it's not nothing she's doing wrong necessarily, but these things have to pay off in a way that horror movies don't, in the way that monster movies don't, in the way that sci-fi movies don't. Those, if they're good enough and they end stupid, we just kind of shrug. If your mystery thriller has to stick to landing, it's why they're so hard to do.
Right.
Or everything that comes before it sort of feels useless. And Woman in the Window doesn't make a fool out of itself in its ending, but it doesn't get there. And so it is a largely disappointing film that has a lot of style and gravitas behind it. So
yeah. Very, it's a Rear Window setup. That's kind of just so everyone kind of knows what we're talking about.
Although it's much more than that, but that is sort of the setup. All
right. Next up is it's Beckett. It is John David Washington starring Fernando Cito Filomarino.
Beckett, I love Beckett. First of all, just read the synopsis. We should do that every time.
Yeah, following a tragic car accident in Greece, an American tourist finds himself at the center of a dangerous political conspiracy and on the run for his life.
It's really fun. First of all, Greece, not oft filmed, especially in the modern era. And Greece is two different things. It's this journey into nature and the ancient world where Western civilization was founded. And it's this urban, gang-ridden, filthy, crime-filled hellhole where the economics of Greece, so you've seen the protests, you've seen cops shooting rubber bullets at people and people starting buildings on fire and stuff. Like the economics in Greece are a complicated thing. We get to slowly move from this vacation version of it to all the way to the worst neighborhood in Athens by the time the movie's over. And that move through Greece alone was, and just shot in this beautiful, perfect way, was worth it. Was worth the experience to me. Now, the story itself, what it's about, what the ultimate payoff is, may feel a little. This movie doesn't bomb or anything, but it feels a little hard to grasp. You want something, some core carnal thing to go, that's what the movie was. That's what was happening. And you don't really get that. You get a little, whatever. But John David Washington as Man on the Run, man, that's perfect. How could you not like that? What did he see? Why are they trying to kill him? What's going on? You never know. You gotta like not knowing. Modern audiences don't like not knowing. You got to like not knowing up until the last second, and then you got to be down with it being kind of, huh? Oh,
yeah. Sure.
There's a scene where he has to call. I mean, but there's movies filled. Well, first of all, it's filled with fantastic location shooting and chase scenes and stuff and escape scenes. Really, really outstanding stuff. It's full of a real parade of bad guys that are really fun to watch and are playing it. They're playing it real. They're keeping it real, basically. That's very fun for me. I like that. The best scene in the whole thing is he has to call, and I believe it is Michael Stuhlbarg on the other end of the line, because I recognize his voice, who's not credited in the movie or anything. But he has to call his fiance's father and tell him that she died in this car accident. And that's a spoiler for the film, but it is kind of right there in the setup. And that scene just rips your heart out. It rips your heart out. He can't even tell him. So you got this panicked parent on the other line, and eventually he just clams up and can't talk. And it's just horrific. It feels so human and so real and so vulnerable. And that movie has that at the core of it. He gets some help. He makes some friends along the way. And he gets chased by some real awful folks. And
I think Greece is really the friends we made along the way.
That's a really good movie of this type. It's a little different. It is Hitchcockian because there's a conspiracy and it is Man on the Run. And it's the part that really, really rings true with those old films is you just don't know. You don't know what is going on ever. And even when you find out, you've got to kind of put it together a little bit on your own.
Yep.
What just happened, but I love it. Washington's just, I mean, he's the bomb. I love watching him and stuff. And this is perfect because he's got to do some talking, but mostly he's just running around and trying not to get shot and looking exasperated. And that's an exhausting project. You know, Tom Cruise is really good at that. It's probably what he's best at, right?
Right.
Just being freaked out and being chased. This is Washington, you know, I mean, that's what Cruise is really good at that. His best movies, that's what they are, basically.
Yeah.
Washington's really great at that too. It's a movie star like performance in an age where the movie star really isn't a thing. And certainly, even if you had even if Tom Cruise had done this movie, it wouldn't have been enough. So these are films that need movie stars to sell them, and you can't. And even a movie star can't sell them,
right?
If that makes any sense. So I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Well, very cool. All right. Well, in the way John,
what's it called again? It's got a weird name.
Beckett.
Yeah, the name of the character. It was called something else, and then they changed it to Beckett, which is the name of another really famous period drama. So it was weird,
right?
Whatever.
It was originally titled "Born to be Murdered,"
which is pretty terrible title. Beckett's
that's not a good title. Yeah, Beckett. Well, in the way John David Washington is the son of Denzel Washington, our next movie is called My Son. How's
My
that?
Son.
How was that? How was that for a transition? That was pretty labored, but I had to go. I had to do it.
Oh, you did. You got there though. Okay. It's hard.
Right,
sometimes they're labored.
Yeah. All right. So next labored.
I don't have a problem with that as long as you get to the next thing, man.
All right, My Son. This one is James McAvoy and Claire Foy. Driving in the heart of the Highlands, Edmund Murray receives a call from his ex-wife in tears. Their 7-year-old son went missing from a campsite. Soon it becomes clear that the child was kidnapped, and the parents give way to despair. Sounds hilarious.
I mean, Scotland, you know, again, these are the sort of things I still really like. Scotland through the lens, the lakes, the roads, the hills. It's exotic, and it takes you to this place you've never been, and it takes this city guy played by James McAvoy into this world that resents him very much to begin with, let alone the fact that he's trying to hunt down the people that kidnapped his son. The gimmick with this movie, and it is a gimmick movie in the end, so whatever's great about it gives way to the gimmick. That's the problem with a gimmick movie, but it's also kind of what's great about it. What's cool about it is that McAvoy was not told what was happening. He knew what he was investigating, but when someone came to his door and started giving him news, he improv'd his way through this entire movie, not knowing how it was going to end. Oh, wow. And the idea behind, and first of all, you need a really, really good actor to pull that off. McAvoy's really, really good. On the other hand, Claire, who knows everything, is really, really good at pushing another actor's buttons. Who's the actor who plays the cop in it? He's been in lots of stuff. He was with
Gary
McAvoy.
Lewis. Is that Gary Lewis?
Gary Lewis. Yeah. Gary Lewis and James know each other really well. The characters don't know each other in this movie, but they did several movies together. Most recently, they were in His Dark Materials together, where they were professor and assistant. Gary plays this cop who's what's going on with him. Like, it's just so acting is reacting, and the idea being that if you don't know what the hell's going on, or you don't know what's around every next corner, then your reacting is going to seem more real. And perhaps they managed that. I think good acting is pulling off that being surprised when you do know what's going on. Yeah. And I think we've seen that hundreds of times. So I don't know that. I feel like the gimmick takes away from this story, because I don't feel that when I'm watching it, but I just feel deep down that knowing that that's what I was watching the whole time, and instead of taking it on its own terms. So as a movie, I'm not sure how good it is. As an experiment, it's remarkable how good it turns out. That's deal with my son. Short, quick, kidnapping thriller. It's as Joel said, the description plays fair with you. It's a dark, serious one for sure. Even compared to Beckett, which has got a real dark soul, this movie is, a child in danger and the seedy side of the world that he comes across in his hunt is really, really ugly. But just lovingly made and pretty well acted by the principals, with a special shout out to Gary Lewis, who's always really good, but doesn't really get to be awesome like he is in this very often.
If you don't remember Gary Lewis, that was the dad in Billy Elliot.
There you go.
So spectacular in Billy.
There you go. Yeah. So I'm not a huge Billy Elliot fan. I only saw it the one time, but that probably his signature role. That's a movie where he really does get to bite it all off. And
absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Next up is the movie Run, with Sarah Paulson. A homeschooled teenager begins to suspect her mother is keeping a dark secret from her.
Holy Moses. Run is a modest little, basically 2-person and a bunch of strangers thriller. But Run gets it all right from top to bottom, from the beginning to the end. The girl, what's her name? The
Kiera Allen.
So good. And Kristen Wiig's off the hook fun in it. And it is a fun but very harrowing mystery suspense film that just nails it. It really is awesome. I didn't give it 10 stars or anything. It's just its ambitions are very simple, but what it does, it just uses, it's what you want. You want to have, these movies are all in the premise, and this premise doesn't even get close to what it even is, which is great. I'm not going to get any closer because I just feel like I watched Run not really knowing what it is. Something's up. Kristen looks very ominous on the movie's poster, so she's probably not the
Sarah Paulson.
Sarah Paulson, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
I get them mixed up all the time. I knew I was talking about Sarah Paulson.
Yeah, I was like, did you say Kristen Wiig? Yeah, no, Sarah Paulson, Kiera Allen.
Sarah Paulson, sorry, Sarah. My apologies. It's your fault a little bit for the American Horror Story stuff, but we'll talk about that later.
She knows.
You're awesome in this. You're awesome in it. You're exactly the right actor. The only other actor I could imagine in this role is Kristen Wiig. It's fun. I don't know what to say. I don't want to ruin it.
Well, okay, very cool. Yeah.
If you're looking for a fun, intense, a mystery, like, this is it. This is the one. This is the one from last year. You should watch Run. And it's really from 2 years ago, actually. Right. But it like Halloween of 2020, I think was roughly when this came out. But this is the one. This is the one. If you like the way I sold Beckett, great. If you like the idea and think it's fascinating behind my son, cool. But this is the one that does it all to a T. And we've got a bunch of more different types of mysteries. This is the Hitchcockian one. Again, I can't even say why. That's the hard thing. With a good thriller, you kind of don't want to ruin the conceit.
Very cool.
Our hero finds it out slowly over the course of the movie. So,
Awesome.
Alicia Vikander dies in the first act of Beckett. I already spoiled that, but I feel like that's the setup. That's where the movie changes. Up until that point, it's a really annoying movie about a modern relationship on vacation. When that happens and the reasons why are what the thing pivots on. This movie, I can't even really tell you what's happening at the start of it. You should figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, the weird thing about Beckett is at the beginning when they're just on vacation and they keep like running into all the people like Meryl Streep and them just like singing ABBA songs and stuff. It's very weird. It's very weird. And then it takes a hard turn.
Very off-putting, the ABBA songs.
All right, moving on. Our next category is this. This is a mouthful. Franchise non-restarters.
I like ABBA a lot, Joel, but I don't like Pierce Brosnan singing ABBA.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
That's not cool. And I like Pierce Brosnan a lot.
Yeah,
it's the combo where we are taken straight to hell in a handbag.
There is a singular moment that no matter whatever happens in Mamma Mia, the moment where Pierce Brosnan and this is the very, very end of the movie where they're in Waterloo, seeing Pierce Brosnan and oh my God, the three guys. I'll just say the three guys: Peter Skarsgård or Stellan Skarsgård and Colin Firth and Pierce Brosnan marching across the screen in their ABBA outfits is one of the singular greatest things I've ever seen.
It's fun.
And I'm so happy it was captured on film. All right, moving on. Franchise.
It's fun. Mamma Mia is fun, no doubt. But
yeah, it's not good.
You guys think Russell Crowe's a bad singer? You know, real Pierce Brosnan. Oof.
Yep. Wow. All right. Franchise non-restarters. We're gonna. Do you want to explain?
Should we do that next, or what do we have coming up?
We're good.
We're about an hour and 20 minutes into the show.
Yeah, about an hour 20. So we have we can talk about.
We are moving through these slowly. We warned you.
Yep.
We warned you. We were going to move through these slowly.
Yeah, and we can talk about one of the hardest working men in show business, Liam Neeson.
We can talk about some more with Liam.
We can talk about some more mystery and suspense, and we could go to comic book heroes.
But we better save comic book heroes, or people will just turn off the show and skip 3 episodes ahead.
We could also do
based
on the incredible true story.
We could do that category too. That's right in here as well. Or we could talk about family films. We could talk about some war and politics.
Hey, let's talk about family films, since that's nothing like that has been on the show so far.
All right, sounds good. Let's talk about some family films that are not
based on the incredible true story.
I don't know, maybe they are.
There's a couple of these are based on the incredible true story.
I just wanted the sounder here. All right. First up then, family adventure grab bag. Finding Ohana.
Hawaiian, the setup's like the Goonies, kind of, not exactly. Instead of being kicked out of their beloved hometown and discovering a hometown legend, these are a bunch of New York kids. They're of Hawaiian descent, but they're New Yorkers who move to Hawaii or visit Hawaii. I guess they visit Hawaii, and they get in touch with their Hawaiian roots by following this Hawaiian treasure hunt legend. This movie is kind of crappy, but it's very winning anyway. It's really just crappily made. I hate to say that, because I know we said it before on the show. A lot goes into making these movies, and it's not easy to make them so they just make visual sense. There's a couple movies on our list, one beloved one that's coming up, where they didn't know what they were doing. It's like they've never watched another movie before. At first you're like, oh, this movie's going for something different. But eventually a movie like that makes you just want to spit your teeth out at the end, at least me.
Yeah.
So this movie doesn't have any of those problems. It feels like a TV show to me. It's what I heard treasure hunt, adventures in the jungles and caves of Hawaii, and I just got really excited. I'm like, yes,
it does sort of, it does. That. Yeah, it does sort of feel like a sort of a Goonies sort of thing. It does have one of my favorite actors in it, Mark Evan Jackson. And so that's Jude Wang, and written by Christina Strain. But
the family drama part of the story is cheesy, cheap TV family drama, and the treasure hunt part of the story is like MacGyver-esque in terms of its set design and the puzzles that have to be solved. It's all very not great, and yet it's actually a lovely family movie. So that none of that stuff quite has to work perfectly or be shooting for the stars for it to be awesome. It really just, these kids, which they are, have to be buying into what's happening, which they totally are and are being encouraged to do. That's great. Thumbs up for that. And you have to care. And there's a sweetness to it that I just made me not be so critical of the rest of it. And when you can sort of achieve that, because that's a magic thing that you can try and plan for, but it's hard to just make happen. And it makes whatever its drawbacks as a actual, action film or mystery film, or it's an adventure film is what the term I should use, just not matter so much in the end, I guess.
Sure. All right, next
and there's some fun jokes in it. There's some fun timing and stuff, but it's a movie, and to me, the movie's got to should try and rise above just a decent TV show episode worth of humor and humanity. But
yeah, that is, I will say, Netflix original. Yeah, when Netflix does original films, they have not nailed the family film yet.
It's hard. This was a good one. This is well received. People really, really like it. There's a lot of really great. The other thing that's great about it is there's a lot of really great cultural information in it that is delivered to you in a really fun and palatable way. It doesn't. You don't feel like you're at a lecture about like Hawaiian history or anything.
Sure.
And I think it taps into. Just a sort of believable family situation from a group of Hawaiian natives. Like it's hard to explain. I don't want to say, oh, this is what they're all going through, but you buy into the given circumstances of the thing, which sometimes are just stupid, especially in a cheesy treasure hunt film.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I like the history of Hawaii is fascinating, and how it came to be part of the United States. One of my favorite books, my favorite authors, Sarah Vowell, has a book called Unfamiliar Fishes, which is all about that. It's fascinating. So yeah, this might be pretty cool. All right.
The real test of it would be, would a kid like it? And I have no idea.
Yeah,
they might, or they might really be bored with it. It's really tough for me to know. I'm not tapped in with kids. It's for the whole family, so it worked on that level with me. But would it work with a kid? And that's really where it's going to win or lose, I think.
Does it have a flatulent ne'er-do-well?
It does not.
Okay, see, well, there you go. I think that's we may run into some issues.
Flatulent ne'er-do-well drug deliverer.
Yeah, well, it's a kids movie, so I didn't know if we wouldn't have a drug deliverer. All right, next up is my favorite part about the poster for Togo is that you don't know who has more intense eyes, Togo the dog or Willem Dafoe. And it's a wonderful poster of two beastly beings.
The best thing about Togo is finally, after these many years, Togo was almost a part of our Dog Lovers show.
It almost was. I pitched it not having ever seen it. I just thought, but
it's got a really, really good reputation. It has a really, really high rating on. But the best thing about Togo, besides the great filmmaking, besides the human survival story, besides the dog as a star, all of which are recipes for a fantastic film if you're a dog survival loving history buff. The best thing about it is finally a movie has come around that craps all over Balto, and it's about damn time. Because Balto, it tells the story of Balto, except Balto was this dog that didn't do much. It did its part, but because of a mistake in reporting by the newspapers that were covering this, became this hero dog and got his own cartoon and got all this stuff. And he didn't even really do anything. You know who did it, Joel?
Togo.
That's correct. It's Togo. Togo did the heavy lifting. And otherwise, it's basically the same story, except it's live action.
Sure. And you know what it is? It is.
Based on the incredible true story.
Yeah. It is. And it really is an incredible story. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It's one of those nature movies. It's a modern one. Okay, it's just not Never Cry Wolf, or it's not anything deep and meaningful like that. But it's a rescue story with sled dogs and these Alaskan people who are used to this sort of thing going on what they kind of know as an impossible mission, and the mechanics with that, and then just the good and bad luck that they have on the way. The digital dog is great because it's partly a real dog and partly a digital dog, and that helps. I think we lamented the digital dog in the otherwise fantastic Alaskan survival dog story with Harrison Ford. What's that one called?
Call of the Wild.
Call of the Wild, yeah. That dog's just too digital, you know. I don't mind that it's a digital dog, but you just can't have it reacting in the moment to everything that's happening on screen, because that's, even if you get the dog reactions right, that's just something a dog doesn't do. Sometimes the dog's disengaged. Dogs are animals. They're not like us. They don't understand what you're saying to them.
Right. So
when you see that recognition on a dog's face, and you see it 25 times during a movie, it doesn't ring true. This film gets that balance, man. It gets it perfectly right. Uses all the modern storytelling tools to tell a very harrowing and fun story. And I adored Togo. I watched these two movies together, Finding Ohana and Togo, and they made for a great double feature in that order, in my opinion.
Very cool.
You probably, and I don't think any of you have families that you can get to sit down for 4 hours and sit in one place, but I just pointing out that as a thing, you know, these two, you know, Alaska and Hawaii, these two faraway things that are American still somehow, they were neat. They were thematically linked, really only by that, but that still was cool. So.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, if it doesn't have accordions or Harley Davidsons in it, I don't know if I could get my son to hang out and watch these for 4 hours. But that doesn't mean I can't.
I'm not 100% sure that Togo doesn't have an accordion in it at some point.
It might, yeah. And I would just have to watch.
I don't think it does, but like same with Sonic Hedgehog. I mean, I'm not 100% sure it's not in there somewhere.
It wouldn't surprise me, you know, 1925 Alaska. You know, you got to have something that, you know, at some point you're going to enter a kind of a
really more of a harmonica type situation. But that's not to say that an accordion didn't make its way north.
Could be a possible concertina where it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more portable. All right. Next up is Disney's, you know, one of their, again, sort of their. Let's take a look at the villains in the Disney universe, and let's sort of figure out how we got there. And that is Disney's Cruella.
Yeah, Cruella origin story. You know, it doesn't really tell you how they got there. You can see the pieces of it, but the Cruella at the end of the movie is not the Cruella we know. So this film's weird in that it doesn't get you there at all.
Okay.
She's the hero of the story, and the movie does not have the balls to turn her into a villain before our eyes. And to me, it's for a family movie. It's in my family movie section. It's pretty dark. There's some pretty awful murders. They're bloodless family murders, but they're really awful if you think through what they actually are. And you know, it does capture some of the fun magic of it, the design world, and it has a lot of very fun cartoonish touches. Emma Thompson's sort of a fun bad guy who again refuses to go too over the top and be silly, and I think that's welcome in this. And who's the other Emma in it?
Emma Stone, Emma Thompson, and
Emma Stone. Emma Stone, obviously, really, really good, and so she's well cast in this part, and I think it's fun, and her gang is fun. But this movie never really breaks into. I mean, this is me talking as an adult. I know at least one little girl really loved this, so if it made one little girl happy, hey. No problem.
Well, there you go.
You know, I saw that Halle Berry Wonder Woman or Catwoman movie with a person I was dating at the time, and it was just us and these two black girls, these teenagers, and they loved that movie. And I'm so grateful they were there, because I don't mean it was just us. I mean, it really was just us. And of course, we hated it like everybody else did because it's terrible. But them whooping it up and them like in every, I'm going to punch you line or every sort of take that, they were so into all of it. And when I left that movie, and to this day, I refuse to hate it because I'm like, God, any movie that made those two kids super happy like that, like it can't be pure evil. It just can't be. But it is as rotten as a movie like that can get. This movie's nowhere near as bad. It's very accomplished. It just doesn't. It doesn't seem to deliver on that promise that Joel just said. How did you become Cruella? It shows you the steps along the way, but it doesn't give you an evolution of that kind. It can't. It really can't. Mm-hmm. That woman from the 101 Dalmatians is probably for my money, is probably the best, coldest-hearted Disney villain that there is. I'm really having a hard time of all the princesses and of all the evil witches and all the, Cruella is just cruel and awful to the core. And we just don't approach anything resembling that in this film. You get a little bit of it from Emma, but you really do feel like Cruella's the tonic for that. And if that's true, then what is this movie? I'm not really sure.
Right. Sure.
It's tough, because the Dalmatians in it are dicks, which you'd expect that would be sort of part of the thing for Cruella, but there isn't anything like that to glom onto, which makes it a really weird and interesting curio of a film. And it goes and I don't say this very often, movie fans, Joel and Ryan know, you can't stick an extra 20 minutes in a movie that I won't watch and be happy about. I feel like even if it's not necessary, somebody wrote it at some point and you shot it, and if it's good, and the movie tends to be better for it because it tends to round things out a little bit better. This movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it's 30 minutes too long. Really, it just it gets quiet and dull and ponderous for large chunks of time. That made me struggle to keep my attention, but it was a reasonable hit for Disney. It did come out in theaters, played pretty well there, and played really, really well on streaming. So I don't want to just say it's awful, because it isn't. It's really well made. Like some of these movies where I'm like, I've got a lot of heart, but it really looks like butt. This is the opposite. This movie's struggling to find what it is, but it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's prettier than any Tim Burton movie, for example. And yet it has that sense of artifice that's just glorious to look at in every shot. So I like that part of it.
Yeah. All right. Next up is another Disney film, and this one is
based on the incredible true
theme park ride. Based on the incredible true theme park ride. And it is Jungle Cruise, based on the theme park ride, where a small riverboat takes a group of travelers through a jungle filled with dangerous animals and reptiles, but with a supernatural element.
Thing about Jungle Cruise is on par with Cruella in terms of my reaction to it. But the thing about Cruella is tough. I'm having a hard time. Like, I'm articulating what I find unsatisfying about it, but I don't have any solutions for that movie. I really don't. I don't know Cruella. I haven't crawled into her and tried to figure her out. Like, from that point of view, that film had a lot of foreign ideas to me, and I had things that I could learn and experience in that. Jungle Cruise, on the other hand, this is my kind of movie. If there's a movie about any sort of Jungle Cruise, I've seen it, and I feel like I know exactly.
I gotta say, I didn't know that about you.
Well, my favorite movie is what? Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
I suppose
my favorite movie template is the adventure film, and this is a jungle adventure.
And this is a jungle adventure. Sure, that makes sense.
Any jungle adventure that comes out, and I've been really, really kind. It's to some very dubious ones on this show before, and spoiler alert, I'm going to be, in the end, we're going to be pretty kind to Jungle Cruise because it's really, really fun and gets a ton of what this movie should be right. Where this movie falls down for me, and let's just get it out of the way early, is it's got all this Pirates of the Caribbean, like supernatural bullshit in it. And that stuff ruins it every time it's around. You don't need all that. The bad guys don't need to be CGI versions of whatever part of the landscape that they become. Like, it's just like the the Davy Jones's crew, basically. It's exactly that. It's not just kind of that. It is that, and that is that. While great in that Pirates of the Caribbean movie, maybe not great, but functional and an important part of the story. In this, it's just a way to make the thugs more magical, more expensive, more stupid on screen, and it takes the danger out of the movie. It introduces, I don't mind a little supernatural. Like I say, I don't mind when it shows up at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark at all. I'm all in at that point. What I don't like is having it sprinkled throughout in unnecessary ways before it becomes something that's meaningful. That's too bad. Jesse Plemons is a delightful villain in it. I don't like smiley, happy villains. I really hate Kevin Bacon, for example, in X-Men First Class. I can't stand that kind of character. Kevin doesn't do it wrong. There's only one way to do it. So when it shows, I don't think Jesse Plemons is like all 100% better than Kevin Bacon. It's just this movie took that idea and really came up with something that pretty much works every time. He's extremely dangerous, self-centered German sort of explorer guy who just mows through people and feelings and limbs and whatever to get what he wants, and he does it with this cheesy sort of happy guy sort of attitude, and it's the second best jungle adventure happy villain that I've ever seen. The best still to this day, and I know this movie's not that great. The best still to this day is Treat Williams in the Phantom. Holy smokes, is that guy hilarious. Everything that comes out of his mouth is magic. This isn't quite like that, but this dude is. Have you ever seen the Phantom with Billy Zane?
Yeah.
He has a line in it where he runs into these old pirates, and he's like, hey, he recognized them as fellow villains, and he's like, hey, this is perfect. I am just the man suited to see us into the future with a bold vision. And you guys can represent the old guard of grizzled scallywags and peg leg beats. He's positive the whole time. And that there's a creepiness in that. The more carnage that piles up, that winning positive attitude like really gets horrific at a certain point if you do it right.
That makes me very excited because I can absolutely picture Jesse Plemons
with the pith helmet and the German accent. I mean, it's cheesy and stupid, but it is a delight. And The Rock is great in it. Obviously, the movie's secret weapon is Emily Blunt, and the character who plays her brother, very much right out of The Mummy. Truly, she's a really smarter than everybody else character. She's not a klutz or anything like that. That's that cheesy, but they are those characters from the Brandon Fraser Mummy films. And this movie really is more that than something as cool as Raiders in the Lost Ark. But the reality is, it's so close to being grounded and something you could buy into. Even with the cheesy lines, the Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World is pretty much my favorite ride. And the thing that's fun about it is the guy taking you on the cruise has all these cheesy jokes and puns and stuff. And The Rock does that throughout the film. And I love him with Humphrey Bogart's hat on. And I mean, it's a great role for Dwayne Johnson. Really, really is awesome. And Emily's like a perfect foil for him because she's a magic creature in film. She's really able to.
She's the best. Oh my God, she's so good.
She can take stage when it's her turn to do that. But what she's really, and all really good movie stars do that. But what she's really good at is hanging back, being the sidekick to this guy, and letting him do his thing, and having everything she does bring validity and. You know what I mean? And connection, human connection to that. And that elevates Dwayne Johnson in this movie. And even when they did their interviews together, when they were on the press junket for this film, you could just tell that chemistry was fun and real.
Yeah.
And that alone, with all the other dumb trappings and all the other dumb wrong turns that this film takes, that alone carries the day. There's plenty of fun action in it. There's plenty of weird exotic animals. There's lots of humor. it's what you expect. I think that I really wish that the supernatural in this film was handled a little bit more like it is in Finding Ohana, where there's this, is it magic? Is it not? What is it? What is the meaning behind it? This film misses the boat on that, which is no pun intended, which is too bad. And it loads it up with other CG trappings that it flat out doesn't need. You should have put more money into the waterfalls and the stuff that you wanted to feel real in the movie, and just let those Spanish guys, even if we find out they're ghosts at the end, just let them be bad guys that are menacing and scary. And you didn't do that. And because of that, it's saved a little bit by Plemons, because to me, he really is scary to me. Genuinely. He's a creepy bad guy. He's a creepy bad guy. There is nobody he's related to. There is no child or living creature on this planet he will not gladly trample over to get what he wants. And that is creepy and scary. And that part ends great. But Edgar Ramirez, he had this fantastic actor to do this other sort of mystery part of the story, and it is pooped on that. That alone's not enough to ruin it, but
sure.
It's enough that you were making The Mummy again. You should have stuck to that, I guess is what I'm saying. Although that had plenty of supernatural right from the get-go too. This movie's nowhere near as dark and creepy and murdery as The Mummy is, but it has its moments. I'm getting too into the woods on Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise is fun. It's fun. Look at the poster, man. Does that look fun? Do it.
Yep.
That's my advice to you.
If it doesn't,
if you look at it and go, I don't know about this, then don't watch it. How could you possibly like it?
Are the hippos jerks in it? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, one character has to learn the hard way that hippos are jerks. So as a nature public service message, that's pretty good, because cartoon hippos, of course, are our friends, and we love them, and they're these huggable, wonderful purple pals. And hippos in real life are one of the deadliest creatures on Earth. They kill more people than alligators in the jungle. So watch out for the hippos, man. They're badass. I like badass hippos.
Remember the guy who was
badass hippos since Congo, another terrible jungle adventure movie that I also enjoy. You could go on and on.
Oh, well, maybe that'll be a countdown. Top 5 jungle.
This movie helps because it gets a night. We haven't had one in a long time. Yeah. It gets a modern blockbuster in the conversation, which I think is helpful.
There you go. All right, you remember Jasper and Cruella? Her. Well, he is also in our final film in this category. It is A Boy Called Christmas.
Oh boy, we should have ended with Jungle Cruise. I was really excited about that one. Boy Called Christmas fantasy movie. I really like this movie. I didn't love it because it's stupid, but I liked it because it really felt like a live action Rankin and Bass film.
Oh, okay.
And it felt a little drugged up and weird, like their stories do. We all know Rudolph and the ones where the story was already there for them. They tend to knock those out of the park. But when they tried to tell the origin story of Jack Frost, or they tried to do these other sort of different stories, they made some really, really weird things. This movie has a lot of weirdness to it that's really fun. It's got a weird little murderous pixie in it. It's got a trek, it's a mission story to the North Pole. It's sort of a Santa Claus origin story, or Father Christmas origin story, but it's got a lot of the British versions of that idea in it rather than the sort of more Western commercialized versions of it. And it's beautiful as a CGI fantasy with all the fake towns and fake snowstorms, and it's really, really neat. Who tells the story in this one? It's another Dame, right?
Dame Maggie.
Yeah, that's right, Maggie Smith. She's great, and she's the narrator. She's telling her grandkids story, and it's really lovely. I mean, I genuinely like it. It's extremely Christmassy. So, you know, my advice is if you skipped it this Christmas, save it for next Christmas. It's not too long. I think once it gets rolling, because, you know, Maggie Smith's like, her daughter is dead and she's visiting her son-in-law and kind of babysitting for his kids. So there's this that's in it, you know, that there's no reason that has to be in it, except that the story wants to have some sense of loss and some sense of, you know, whatever in it. So there's some, the movie doesn't have a happy ending for everybody, I guess we just should say. It's very English in that sense too.
Sure.
But it is a really lively Christmassy fantasy. Toby Jones, who plays the pixie girl, man, she just cracked me up whenever she was on screen.
I having not seen it, I don't know. Let's see. Is the character named Moppet?
Could be.
Iomita Garrick?
Maybe.
Possibly. Let's
Sorry,
see here.
Fans out there, to end on this note of not knowing somebody's name.
I mean,
she's really fun.
Kristen Wiig's in it, so Isabella
not her,
O'Sullivan.
but Kristen Wiig's the evil stepmother in the story within the story.
Oh, fun.
Sure, it's not Sarah Paulson?
This one legit says Kristen Wiig.
Nice.
But of course it might indeed be Sarah Paulson. There's
she's Kristen Wiig's fun in it. She's, again, because she kind of refuses to be, she really finds the person in this evil stepmother character right out of Hansel and Gretel, truly. And that's not easy to do. It's fun to see, you know what I mean? So sorry, I don't mean to get Sarah and Kristen mixed up, but I truly do get them mixed up. I really do. You can do one of those someday. I'll try not to do too much research, but you can do, is it Kristen Wiig or is it Sarah Paulson? And I'll probably score only slightly better than 50% on it.
I think people can be looking forward to
I was watching The Martian, for example, and I thought I was watching Sarah Paulson until about halfway through it.
Well, there you go.
It's the kind of role she would play, and in the way she would play it, I really believe that. So, even though I'm embarrassed to get that wrong, there's a reason behind it. Those two do trick me sometimes.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for part 2 of our year in review 2021. I mean, we got some fun stuff. Like you heard on some, we have some
based on the incredible true story.
We have comic book films. We have
based on the incredible true story.
Ripped from the Headlines edition, and we have some crime thrillers.
That alone will be fun. The distinction between based on the incredible true story and Ripped from the Headlines is an important one that we'll have to make
really
during the show. We also have mystery. We have crime thrillers and crime dramas.
Yep. We have some musicals we get to talk about.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. Art for art's sake, big time talkers. We have some sci-fi, some high concept sci-fi and low fidelity sci-fi. I like those 2 category titles.
Yeah.
But that, so that's what we have coming up. So we have lots of movies we still have to get through. And you know what? Hey, we're all just still trying to get by, trying to stay healthy, trying to make ends meet and keep our sanity here. So we are going to continue to just sort of work our way through these films. And join us next week for 2021 in review.
Take that, Balto.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.